Well, this will be the start of the journey. I'm in Dover and it's pouring down with rain.
From Calais, I took myself and my fully assembled bike by train down to Amiens. There was no need to book this, I just waited for the next available regional TER service and hopped on. And then from Amiens I planned on taking a week to 10 days to cycle back to Dunkirk, passing through the quiet lanes and villages where once many of the battles of the Great War took place.
Here we are. First glimpse of the River Somme. So I've just arrived, and left Amiens really. Just used the station. It's been pouring down with rain today, so it's not too bad right now. So I'm going to make make up some ground, I think. Oh, look, a poppy. First poppy. So I'm heading east along the river to a place called Corbie. Not booked anything, but I've seen there's a campsite there and I think that would be perfect. I thought I'd treat myself to a slightly shorter ride and just get settled into the campsite and get into the rhythm of cycle touring again. I've not done it for a few years and kind of like all over the shop at the moment, but so far so good. But there's some good fishing to be had in this river and all the little lakes that feed from it. Look at that. Wow. It's just not a single river. The Somme seems to spread far and wide either side. It feeds all these, like, I don't know whether to call them lakes or what, I don't know. I know Amiens got quite a name for, they call them floating gardens or something, and if I had more time I would have spent a little time looking around. You can hire a boat and move around these islands, but perhaps for another day, I don't know. I've had to stop and record some of the footage of these lakes. It's absolutely beautiful. Look at that. I mean, it really is very quiet, but then I suppose it is all wet. It's Tuesday afternoon. Come up here and notice there's like a lock. I didn't realise the Somme had locks on it.
Soon after the heavy rain set in, so feeling quite tired, I headed to the campsite to bring what felt like a really long day to an end.
Right, morning of the next day. It's been quite a wet night. It's dry at the moment, but unfortunately not long enough to dry the tent out, so that's been packed away quite wet. As for the campsite, no complaints. In fact, it's been quite nice with decent facilities and lovely hot showers. This site I thought was pretty good value at just €10. So anyway, on to Ypres, or the Ypres area. Whilst it's dry, just fingers crossed it holds out. Steep hill. Just come out of Corbie. a couple of miles outside of town. I've just strayed across this information board. It tells me all about the Red Baron. This is where he was shot down in 1918, and where he died shortly after. Wow. Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron. 80 kills. I think that in the distance is Fricourt. So this cycle tour really, it's got a bit of a World War I flavour to it. I wanted to kind of combine things that I like to do, which is cycle touring, military history, and also family history too. So what I've done, I've strung together like a 9 or a 10-day tour based on the Western Front. The idea is to cycle all the way along, broadly speaking that is, along the Western Front from the Somme area all the way back up to the Channel. Now, I'm never going to be able to do it all, but the idea is to focus on areas where members of my own family fought back in the First World War. Plenty of Australians buried here in 1918. These guys would have been in the thick of it, in the middle of the German Spring Offensive. In amongst all the normal headstones, I noticed these that from behind look slightly different, and just checking them out. Actually, Germans buried here too. All ended up in the same place. Oh, this horse is a cheval, isn't it? Cheval in French. I really must learn more French. Know how to order food, bread, order beer, my camping requirements, but that's about it. So Ville-sur-Ancre and a couple of the other places that we've just passed through, True, Fricourt, and we come into Dernicourt also. These places are all mentioned in the battalion diaries, and this is what a lot of the battalions used when they were pulling the soldiers back from the actual front line. The front line as it was in 1916 around the Albert area. So, you know, my old great uncles and great grandfather might well have marched up here. Bonjour. There's a small station here. There used to be, or still is, and that's the station they used for then moving further on, further behind the rear lines to way beyond Amiens to the west. So, you know, the ancestors were here, this is where they were. Amazing. Pavilion de Adelaide. There's a lot of dedication to the Australians around here as well for what they did in 1918. Okay, we're just coming into Albert now. The far distance there you can see the basilica. we go, this is a decent lunch for sure. Croque monsieur and a pint by the Basilique in Albert. Cheers. Right, so I've just had lunch. Really nice croque monsieur and a pint of beer. It's not what I planned, but actually it looked good. Somebody else was having it. I thought, well, yeah, I'll try that as well. Anyway, here I am at Albert. It's just passing through really today. There's a great museum over there by the Basilique. It's in the basement. I came here before, and it's absolutely rammed full of, you know, artifacts and memorabilia from the First World War, in particular 1916. I dare say it was blown to pieces back in the First World War, but it's a lovely town now. Should be coming to a rather large hole in the ground. It's a seriously big hole. This was the result of a mine directly underneath the German front line, and that mine being detonated signalled the start of the attack on the 1st of July, the opening day of the Battle of the Somme. Just noticed that round the perimeter, around the edge of the crater itself, there's a wooden walkway. Well, what I've actually noticed is that each plank has got a dedication. It's got a soldier's name on there, look. There's lots of these sort of stories by people that were there at the time, soldiers mainly. Really is so peaceful around here. Complete contrast to what was happening back in those days.
So this is the photograph which started it all for me really. It's where my journey began in discovering my own family ancestry, and it's the reason why I'm here making this journey now. We found it amongst many other family photos and had no idea who it was. After putting together what little information we had and researching using online World War I war forums and the Commonwealth and Graves Commission website, the soldier was identified as John Thomas Noakes, who died on the 3rd of July 1916 and was buried in a cemetery near Auvillers-la-Boisselle. John was my great-granduncle. He was my great-grandfather, James's elder brother. Both brothers were serving in the army for years before the outbreak of war. James was a sergeant in the Royal Field Artillery, whilst John was a private serving with the 1st Battalion Lincolnshire Regiment. So in order to discover more, I purchased battalion diaries and researched the freely available trench maps, and from that John's last place of action was identified. So the Battle of the Somme began on the 1st of July 1916. However, the 1st Lincolnshires were not involved, but were moved up the next day to occupy ground that had been captured into a new frontline position. In the evening, brigade orders were received that the Lincolnshires were to lead an attack the next morning at a place called Shelterwood and Birchtree Wood, a mostly shelled and splintered woodland just north of the village of Fricourt. We can only guess just what must have been going through the minds of those soldiers such as John, who would have seen the slaughter of the opening attack on the first day, and now were about to go over the top themselves.
Right, here I am at Birch Tree and Shelter Woods. This is what they look like today. They look like one continuous long wood, I suppose, but they've all grown in together. Birch Tree's the smaller one. I know it's hard to pick out really, but the one in front of us that's a lighter colour, that's Birch Tree wood, and on the right, in the far distance, that's Shelter Wood. It goes back a lot further.
The objective was to capture the trench running along the northern edge of the woods as far as a German-held light railway to the right. The 10th Yorkshires were to provide fire cover on the right, whilst the 12th and 13th Northumberland Fusiliers would provide further support if required. At 9 AM after a 20-minute bombardment, the Lincolns rushed forward into heavy machine gun fire from Birch Tree Wood on their left. And they were also met with strong German resistance at the tree line of Shelter Wood. It was around this time that the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Grant, was severely wounded. The attack had ground to a halt, and also with reports of German reinforcements coming from Contal-Mazon, prompted the Brigadier General to commit all reserves to the fight. After several more hours of hand-to-hand fighting, the woods were finally secured at 2 PM. The woods were captured along with 700 German prisoners, but the price paid was 243 casualties, of which 37 had been killed, with a further 9 missing. John Thomas Noakes, my great uncle, was one of those killed, aged 31. This brought to an end the life of a devoted soldier who joined the military aged just 15. John now lies at rest in a nearby military cemetery.
That cross over there marks a cemetery where John Noakes is buried, my great uncle. Let's go down and say hello, shall we? Not sure if I can ride down there. I'll give it a go. These cemeteries really are beautifully looked after. The Commonwealth and Graves Commission do an amazing job really. And in each cemetery there's a register where you can check out who's here. Here we go in this register. There's my great uncle here. Private John Noakes, 1st Battalion, Lincolnshire Regiment. He was 31 when he died. Sarah Eliza Noakes with his mother. And that's the reference. That's where we can find him. And here he is, laid alongside all his Lincolnshire Regiment friends. Hello, John. There you go, mate. Well, the weather's not too clever today. It's raining, not heavily, but enough for me to change my plans around a little bit. So I've decided to shelve the bike for this morning. I'm going to walk back into Albert and perhaps check out the museum. Okay, so we're in the Albert Museum now, the Somme Museum. And the whole thing is in the basement underneath the basilisk. I know these displays are somewhat made up, but they are done using scale and artifact that's correct. And it really is quite claustrophobic, I think, just standing here looking into this trench and realising just how awful the conditions were.
Artillery and machine gun fire caused terrible wounds to the soldiers. This panel shows some of the facial injuries sustained and is of interest to me as my own great uncle Len suffered a facial injury at Passchendaele. He underwent years of surgery under the care of the pioneering plastic surgeon Sir Harold Gillies. The scene depicted here shows how a Captain Neville of the 8th East Surrey Regiment came up with a novel idea to encourage his men forward by handing out footballs for them to kick across no man's land on the opening day of the Somme. I find this particularly interesting as my own great uncle Jack served with the 8th East Surrey Regiment.
There you have it, the Albert Museum, 1916 Somme. Fantastic. If ever you're in the area, definitely give it a go. It's only €8 to get in and it's worth every cent. It looks like it's stopped raining now, which is a result. So I'm going to try and get back to the I'm going to get back to the camp and pick up my bike and go for a bit of a ride, see what we can see, and just hope the weather stays dry this afternoon. Although that might be wishful thinking, unfortunately. We shall see.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video so far. Feel free to check out part 2 as I continue my journey north.
My thoughts are too big. Can I get some